Howdy. Pretty sure I'm live. Let me just make sure. I am live. Okay. We are going to be doing the SC900, and I've already been doing some of it, so this won't be from the beginning, but just a little bit of context. I've been working with the Microsoft tech stack since 2019, and only recently have I been pursuing Microsoft certifications. As the owner of 22 Halo, a lot of times with my own contracts, I don't really need to show a certification. I just need competency in what I'm doing. But I'm currently contracted with a managed service organization that wants more certifications to be able to get access to some of their environments. So here I am. I'm doing some Microsoft certification materials. I've already passed the Azure Fundamentals, the AZ900. Now I'm doing the SC900, and will be going along the security learning path. So I will do some of the Azure learning path as well, probably, like more the infrastructure stuff. But I have a background in IT infrastructure and also cybersecurity. So those are the two that I'll be focusing on getting certified in. And I figured I'd just start right from the beginning, review all the material, and take the tests. So if you are in a similar position or looking to get certifications, you're more than welcome to go through this with me. And I should probably also have a wherever the live is. Where is it? Is this it? I'm just thinking I should probably pop the chat out just in case. How do I get to my live? As you can tell, it's very impromptu. Where is it? That's not it. I've got a lot of tabs open. Here it is. So let's go ahead and pop this chat out. Then I'll minimize this screen and minimize this screen and move this over here. And we'll just start right where I left off. I won't start over. You'll just pick up where I'm at in this journey. So, and we'll also move this just to live chat. So describe types of identities. In Microsoft Entra ID, there are different types of identities that are supported. The terms you'll hear and are introduced in this unit are user identities, workload identities, device identities, external identities, and hybrid identities. Each of these terms is described in more detail in the sections that follow. When you ask the question, to what can I assign an identity in Microsoft Entra ID, there are three categories. You can assign identities to people, humans. Examples of identities assigned to people are employees of an organization that are typically configured as internal users and external users that include customers, consultants, vendors, and partners. For our purposes, we'll refer to these as user identities. You can assign identities to physical devices such as mobile phones, desktop computers, and Internet of Things devices. Lastly, you can assign identities to software-based objects such as applications, virtual machines, services, and containers. These identities are referred to as workload identities. So here's a little graphic. We'll open that up in a new tab. so you can see it a little better. And it just shows workload identities are containers, virtual machines, applications, and services. And device identities are mobile devices, Internet of Things, and operational technology devices. I think that's what OT stands for. OT, IT. Yeah, operational technology. Which would have to do with like when I hear operational technology, I think of like industrial control systems, factories, utility plants, a lot of like robotics and programmable logic controllers, stuff like that. But Internet of Things devices and operational technology devices and desktop computers. And then human identities are employees, partners, customers, vendors, and consultants. In this unit, we consider each type of Microsoft Entra identity. User. User identities represent people such as employees and external users, customers, consultants, vendors, and partners. In Microsoft Entra ID, user identities are characterized by how they authenticate and the user type property. How the user authenticates is asked relative to the host organization's Microsoft Entra tenant and can be internal or external. Internal authentication means the user has an account on the host organization's Microsoft Entra ID and uses that account to authenticate to Microsoft Entra ID. External authentication means the user authenticates using an external Microsoft Entra account that belongs to another organization, a social network identity, or other external identity provider. The user type property describes the user's relationship to the organization, or more specifically, the host organization's tenancy. The user can be a guest or a member of the organization's Microsoft Entra tenant. By default, guests of the organization have limited privileges in the organization's directory relative to members of the organization. So for external identities, for an external guest, it uses an external Microsoft Entra ID account, social identity, or other external identity provider to sign in. Most external users fall into this category. For a member or external member, it uses an external account to authenticate but has member level access in your organization. Common scenario in multi-tenant organizations. For internal, an internal guest has an account in your Microsoft Entra ID directory, but only guest level access in your organization. This is often a legacy user created before the availability of Microsoft Entra business to business. An internal member has an account in your Microsoft Entra ID directory and member level access in your organization, generally considered employees of your organization. So an internal member, these users are typically considered employees of your organization. The user authenticates internally via their organization's Microsoft Entra ID, and the user object created in the resourced Microsoft Entra ID directory has a user type of member. External guest, users or guests, including consultants, vendors, and partners, typically fall into this category. The user authenticates using an external Microsoft Entra account or an external identity provider, such as a social identity. The user account created in the resource Microsoft Entra directory has a user type of guest, giving them limited guest level permissions. External member. This scenario is common in organizations consisting of multiple tenants. Consider the scenario where the Contoso Microsoft Entra tenant and the Fabricam Microsoft Entra tenant are tenants within one large organization. Users from the Contoso tenant need member level access to resources in Fabricam. In this scenario, Contoso users are configured in the Fabricam Microsoft Entra directory such that they authenticate with their Contoso account, which is external to Fabricam, but have a user type of member to enable member level access to Fabricam's organizational resources. An internal guest. The scenario exists when organizations who collaborate with distributors, suppliers, and vendors set up internal Microsoft Entra accounts for these users, but designate them as guests by setting the user object user type to guest, As a guest, they have reduced permissions in the directory. This is considered a legacy scenario as it is now more common to use business-to-business collaboration. With business-to-business collaboration, users can use their own credentials, allowing their external identity provider to manage authentication and their account lifecycle. External guests and external members are business-to-business collaboration users that fall under the category of external identities in Microsoft Entra ID and is described in more detail in the subsequent unit. Workload identities. A workload identity is an identity you assign to a software workload. This enables the software workload to authenticate to and access other services and resources. This helps secure your workload. Securing your workload identities is important because unlike a human user, a software workload may deal with multiple credentials to access different resources, and those credentials need to be stored securely. It's also hard to track when a workload identity is created or when it should be revoked. Enterprises risk their applications or services being exploited or breached because of difficulties in securing workload identities. Microsoft Entra Workload ID helps resolve these issues when securing workload identities. In Microsoft Entra, workload identities are applications, service principals, and managed identities. Applications and service principals. A service principal is essentially an identity for an application. For an application to delegate its identity and access functions to Microsoft Entra ID, the application must first be registered with Microsoft Entra ID to enable its integration. Once an application is registered, a service principal is created in each Microsoft Entra tenant where the application is used. The service principal enables core features such as authentication and authorization of the application to resources that are secured by the Microsoft Entra tenant. For the service principals to be able to access resources secured by the Microsoft Entra tenant, application developers must manage and protect the credentials. If not done correctly, this can introduce security vulnerabilities. Managed identities help offload that responsibility from the developer. Managed identities. Managed identities are a type of service principal that are automatically managed in Microsoft Entra ID and eliminate the need for developers to manage credentials. Managed identities provide an identity for applications to use when connecting to Azure resources that support Microsoft Entra authentication and can be used without any extra cost. So as a developer, I want to build an application using the source, which is different types of Azure resources, Azure Virtual Machines, Azure App Services, Azure Functions, Azure Container Instances, Azure Kubernetes Service, Azure Logic Apps, and Azure Storage, and so on and so forth. And it accesses a target, which is any target that supports Microsoft Entra ID authentication, which could be your applications and Azure services like Key Vault, Azure Storage, Azure SQL, and you don't have to manage any credentials. For a list of Azure services that support managed identities, refer to the Learn More section of the summary and the resources unit. There are two types of managed identities, system assigned and user assigned. System assigned. Some Azure resources, such as virtual machines, allow you to enable a managed identity directly on the resource. When you enable a system-assigned managed identity, an identity is created in Microsoft Entra that's tied to the lifecycle of that Azure resource. Because the identity is tied to the lifecycle of that Azure resource when the resource is deleted, Azure automatically deletes the identity for you. An example where you may find a system-assigned identity is when a workload is contained within a single Azure resource, such as an application that runs on a single virtual machine. User assigned. You may also create a managed identity as a standalone Azure resource. Once you create a user assigned managed identity, you can assign it to one or more instances of an Azure service. For example, a user assigned managed identity can be assigned to multiple virtual machines. With user assigned managed identities, the identity is managed separately from the resources that use it. Deleting the resources that use the user assigned managed identity doesn't delete the identity. The user assigned managed identity must be explicitly deleted. This is useful in a scenario where you may have multiple virtual machines that all have the same set of permissions but may get recycled frequently. Deleting any of the virtual machines doesn't impact the user assigned managed identity. Similarly, you can create a new virtual machine and assign it the existing user assigned managed identity. Device. A device is a piece of hardware such as mobile devices, laptops, servers, or printers. A device identity gives administrators information they can use when making access or configuration decisions. Device identities can be set up in different ways in Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft Entra Registered Devices. The goal of Microsoft Entra Registered Devices is to provide users with support for bring your own device or mobile device scenarios. In these scenarios, a user can access your organization's resources using a personal device. Microsoft Entra Registered Devices registered to Microsoft Entra ID without requiring an organizational account to sign into the device. Microsoft Entra Joined. A Microsoft Entra Joined device is a device joined to Microsoft Entra ID through an organizational account, which is then used to sign into the device. Microsoft Entra Joined devices are generally owned by the organization. Microsoft Entra Hybrid Joined Devices. Organizations with existing on-premises Active Directory implementations can benefit from the functionality provided by Microsoft Entra ID by implementing Microsoft Entra Hybrid Joined Devices. These devices are joined to your on-premises Active Directory and Microsoft Entra ID require an organizational account to sign into the device. Registering and joining devices to Microsoft Entra ID gives users single sign-on to cloud-based resources. Additionally, devices that are Microsoft Entra joined benefit from the single sign-on experience to resources and applications that rely on on-premises Active Directory. IT admins can use tools like Microsoft Intune, a cloud-based service that focuses on mobile device management and mobile application management to control how an organization's devices are used. For more information, see Microsoft Intune. Groups. In Microsoft Entra ID, if you have several identities with the same access needs, you can create a group. You use groups to give access permissions to all members of the group, instead of having to assign access rights individually. Limiting access to Microsoft Entra resources to only those identities who need access is one of the core security principles of Zero Trust. There are two group types. Security. A security group is the most common type of group, and it's used to manage user and device access to shared resources. For example, you may create a security group for a specific security policy, such as a self-service password reset, for use with a conditional access policy to require multi-factor authentication. Members of a security group can include users, including external users, devices, other groups, and service principals. Creating security groups requires a Microsoft Entra administrator role. Microsoft 365. A Microsoft 365 group, which is also often referred to as a distribution group, is used for grouping users according to collaboration needs. For example, you can give members of the group access to a shared mailbox, calendar, files, there's a missing comma, SharePoint sites, and more. Members of a Microsoft 365 group can only include users, including users outside of your organization. Because Microsoft 365 groups are intended for collaboration, the default is to allow users to create Microsoft 365 groups so that you don't need an administrator role. Groups can be configured to allow members to be assigned. That is, manually selected, or they can be configured for dynamic membership. Dynamic membership uses rules to automatically add and remove identities. The next unit will be describing hybrid identity. Describe hybrid identity. Well, there's no denying the rapid pace at which organizations are moving their workloads to the cloud. Many businesses and corporations are still a mixture of on-premises and cloud applications. Regardless of where an application is hosted, users expect and require easy access. As such, there's need to have a single identity across these various applications. Microsoft's identity solutions span on-premises and cloud-based capabilities. These solutions create a common identity for authentication and authorization to all resources regardless of location. We call this hybrid identity. Hybrid identity is accomplished through provisioning and synchronization. Inter-directory provisioning is provisioning an identity between two different directory services systems. For a hybrid environment, the most common scenario for inter-directory provisioning is when a user already in Active Directory is provisioned into Microsoft Entra ID. Synchronization is responsible for making sure identity information for your on-premises users and groups is matching the cloud. One of the available methods for accomplishing inter-directory provisioning and synchronization is through Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync. Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync is designed to meet and accomplish your hybrid identity goals for the provisioning and synchronization of users, groups, and contacts to Microsoft Entra ID. It accomplishes this by using the Microsoft Entra Cloud Provisioning Agent. The agent provides a lightweight inter-directory provisioning experience that acts as a bridge between Microsoft Entra ID and Active Directory. An organization only needs to deploy the agent in their on-premises or infrastructure as a service hosted environment. The provisioning configuration is stored in Microsoft Entra ID and managed as part of the service. On-premises Active Directory, Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, Microsoft Entra ID. The Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync Provisioning Agent uses the System for Cross-Domain Identity Management (SCIM) specification with Microsoft Entra ID to provision and deprovision users and groups. The SCIM specification is the standard that is used to automate the exchanging of user or group identity information between identity domains such as Microsoft Entra ID and is becoming the de facto standard for provisioning. Describe external identities as the next unit. Today's world is about collaboration, working with people both inside and outside your organization. That means you'll sometimes need to provide access to your organization's applications or data to external users. Microsoft Entra External ID combines powerful solutions for working with people outside of your organization. With external ID capabilities, you can allow external identities to securely access your apps and resources. Whether you're working with external partners, consumers, or business customers, users can bring their own identities. These identities can range from corporate or government-issued accounts to social identity providers like Google or Facebook. Microsoft Entra ID addresses the scenarios that are encountered when it comes to working with external users. Collaborate with business guests. Secure your apps for consumers and business customers. Also, each of these scenarios suggests a different approach for how an organization configures their Microsoft Entra ID tenant. There are two ways to configure a tenant, depending on how the organization intends to use the tenant and the resources they want to manage. A workforce tenant configuration is for your employees, internal business apps, and other organizational resources. You can invite external business partners and guests to your workforce tenant. An external tenant configuration is used exclusively for external ID scenarios where you want to publish apps to consumers or business customers. Microsoft Entra External ID. For workforce business-to-business collaboration, collaborate with external business partners and guests. For external-facing apps, manage secure sign-in for consumers and business customers. Collaborate with business guests. If you want to enable your employees to collaborate with business partners and guests, use External ID for business-to-business collaboration. External ID business-to-business collaboration allows your workforce to collaborate with external business partners. Using your workforce tenant, you can use business-to-business collaboration to share your company's applications and services with guests, while maintaining control over your own corporate data. You can invite anyone to sign in to your Microsoft Entra organization using their own credentials so they can access the apps and resources you want to share with them. Use business-to-business collaboration when you need to let business guests access your Office 365 apps, software as a service apps, and line of business applications. There are no credentials associated with business guests. Instead, they authenticate with their home organization or identity provider, and then your organization checks the user's eligibility for guest collaboration. Business-to-business collaboration. Secure collaboration between your workforce and business partners. Workforce, Microsoft Entra tenant. You have your employees. They send a business-to-business collaboration invitation to external businesses, partners, and guests, who then redeem the invitation or use self-service to sign up. And there's the business apps. Secure your apps for consumers and business customers. If you're an organization or developer creating consumer apps, use External ID to quickly add authentication and customer identity and access management, CIAM, and that is Customer Identity and Access Management, which is CIAM, it's the acronym, to your application. Microsoft Entra External ID includes Microsoft Customer Identity and Access Management, CIAM solution, that includes features like self-service registration, personalized sign-in experiences, including single sign-on with social and enterprise identities, and customer account management. Because these CIAM capabilities are built into Microsoft Entra ID, You also benefit from platform features like enhanced security, compliance, and scalability. External ID, manage secure sign-in for consumers and business customers. External consumers and business customers. External facing apps. You can have a single page, a web, mobile, desktop. And now we're going to see if I retained any of this. So your organization wants to ensure that personal devices can access corporate resources without requiring an organizational account. Which identity type should be used in Microsoft Entra ID to support this requirement? Hybrid identities, Microsoft Entra joined devices, or Microsoft Entra registered devices. And it would be a Microsoft Entra registered device, I believe. Sometimes I get them confused. I'm pretty sure joined is like when you actually have a Windows 11 Pro license and it's enrolled with the domain. And this is just when is the BYOD device. Your organization uses Microsoft Entra ID for hybrid identity management and wants to enhance identity security posture. What tool can help measure and improve identity security according to Microsoft's best practice recommendations? And that would be the Identity Secure Score. It's not Azure Virtual Machine, which is a resource. And then Microsoft Intune is a different platform for managing devices. Which of the following identity types in Microsoft Entra ID is associated with applications and services needing access to resources? Device identities, user identities, or workload identities. It would be workload identities. Your organization is implementing a hybrid identity solution and needs to ensure that external partners can access shared resources without compromising security. Which feature of Microsoft Entra ID would best support this requirement? Would it be, wait, I don't think I even remember the question. So it's your organization is implementing a hybrid identity solution and needs to ensure that external partners can access shared resources without compromising security. Which feature of Microsoft Entra ID would best support this requirement? And it's external identities through business-to-business collaboration, which that's the answer. Exclusive use of internal user identities, or disabling access to cloud resources for external users. Which is the primary function of Microsoft Entra Identity's Secure Score feature? To manage device configurations across the organization? No, that'd be Intune. To measure and improve your organization's identity security posture? I believe it's that one. And then to provide cloud storage for user data, and that would be OneDrive. Which type of identity in Microsoft Entra ID represents a software component like an application or service that needs to authenticate to other resources? And that's going to be workload identity again. How can an organization ensure secure access for external users without issuing new credentials for each users? Require external users to use a shared account. It's definitely not that. Issue temporary passwords for each external access request. No. Allow external users to authenticate with their own identity providers. That would be it. So they can use like Facebook or like that would be like one, or LinkedIn. And then they can use I think they can use Google too, those identity providers. I need a refresher on all the identity providers that are, we'll look that up. Which identity type in Microsoft Entra ID is primarily used for authenticating software-based objects like applications and services, particularly in a hybrid identity setup? That'd be workload identity again. What am I missing? Are these seriously all workload? We're going to find out. What identity type should be used in Microsoft Entra ID for a consultant who requires temporary access to your company's internal network resources? And that would be a external guest identity. See how I did. All right, yeah, I got 100%. I was gonna say there's a lot of the answers were workload identity for that. And then we were gonna look up identity providers supported by Microsoft Entra. I want to see which identity providers. So Facebook, that's usually the first one I think of because almost everyone has a Facebook. So yeah, Facebook, Google. Is it just Facebook and Google? I thought there was more than one. I thought there was more. I thought LinkedIn. Is it just Google? I thought LinkedIn was one. Like, LinkedIn is Microsoft, so it probably... Is LinkedIn supported as an IDP for Microsoft Entra External? Yeah. Prime... It is. Then why did it only list Google and Facebook? List of supported identity providers for external ID, Microsoft Entra. Google, Facebook, Apple. Social providers, Facebook, Google, and Apple. Custom Open Identity Connect. Custom Samuel WS Fed. So is LinkedIn added as a custom OpenID Connect provider? That might be the case. I may have to do a lab. Here we go. Custom OpenID Connect. Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to do a lab. We can create an app and connect some external identity providers to the app so we can do a real world test. Alright, but I finished that module. So let's click next and look at the summary and resources. In this module, you've gained an insight into the core functionality of Microsoft Entra ID and the identity type supported. You also learned about the concept of a hybrid identity model where all user identities are managed in your on-premises Active Directory domain services directory and changes are synchronized to your Microsoft Entra ID. Now that you've completed this module, you'll be able to describe the core functionality of Microsoft Entra ID, describe the types of identities supported by Microsoft Entra ID, describe the concept of hybrid identity as supported by Microsoft Entra ID, and then more information. Let's complete the module. Complete. And we're still on the introduction to Microsoft Entra. I've completed part 1. I'll click continue. I've already done this. I don't exactly like the Microsoft Learn, how when you click next it pops you out of the learning path. I always find myself going back to the web page and then having to look at the so I've completed this one. Yeah, that's completed, and now I'm on Introduction to Microsoft Entra ID. So let's do continue. Unit 2 of 7. What's the introduction? Maybe I haven't read this. Authentication is the process of verifying an identity to be legitimate. Passwords are commonly used to authenticate users, but there are better and more secure ways to authenticate. In this module, you'll learn about the authentication capabilities of Microsoft Entra ID, multi-factor authentication, and how it improves security. You'll also find out about the password protection and management capabilities of Microsoft Entra ID. After completing this module, you'll be able to describe the authentication methods in Microsoft Entra ID, describe the multi-factor authentication in Microsoft Entra ID, describe the password protection and management capabilities of Microsoft Entra ID. So we're going to describe the authentication methods. Describe the authentication methods. One of the main features of an identity platform is to verify or authenticate credentials when a user signs into a device, application, or service. Microsoft Entra ID offers different methods of authentication. Passwords. Passwords are the most common form of authentication, but they have many problems, especially if used in single-factor authentication where only one form of authentication is used. If they're easy enough to remember, they're easy for a hacker to compromise. Strong passwords that aren't easily hacked are difficult to remember and affect user productivity when forgotten. The use of passwords should be supplemented or replaced with more secure authentication methods available in Microsoft Entra ID. So here are the bad passwords, and then the good password is SMS and voice. And then better is password and the use of something like Authenticator with push notifications, software token, one-time password, hardware tokens, one-time password. And the best is passwordless, which is using a like Authenticator, Windows Hello, a FIDO2 security key, or certificates. Phone. Microsoft Entra ID supports two options for phone-based authentication. SMS-based authentication. Short message service, SMS, used in mobile device text messaging, can be used as a primary form of authentication. With SMS-based sign-in, users don't need to know username and password to access applications and services. The user instead enters their registered mobile phone number, receives a text message with a verification code, and enters that in the sign-in interface. Users can also choose to verify their identity through SMS text messaging on a mobile phone as a secondary form of authentication during self-service password reset or Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication. For example, users can supplement their password by using SMS text messaging. An SMS is sent to the mobile phone number containing a verification code. To complete the sign-in process, the verification code provided is entered into the sign-in interface. Voice call verification. Users can use voice calls as a secondary form of authentication to verify their identity during self-service password reset or Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication. With phone call verification, an automated voice call is made to the phone number registered by the user. To complete the sign-in process, the user is prompted to press the pound on their keypad. Voice calls are not supported as a primary form of authentication in Microsoft Entra ID. OAuth, Open Authentication, is an open standard that specifies how time-based one-time password codes are generated. One-time password codes can be used to authenticate as a user. Open Authentication, TOTP, is implemented using either software or hardware to generate the codes. Software OAuth tokens are typically applications. Microsoft Entra ID generates the security key, or seed, that's input into the app and used to generate each one-time password. OAuth, one-time password, hardware tokens supported in public preview are small hardware devices that look like a key fob that displays a code that refreshes every 30 or 60 seconds. OAuth, one-time password hardware tokens typically come with a secret key or seed pre-programmed in the token. These keys and other information specific to each token must be input into Microsoft Entra ID and then activated for use by end users. OAuth software and hardware tokens are only supported as secondary forms of authentication in Microsoft Entra ID to verify an identity during self-service password reset or Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication. Passwordless authentication. The end goal for many organizations is to remove the use of passwords as part of sign-in events. When a user signs in with a passwordless method, credentials are provided by using methods like biometrics with Windows Hello for Business or a FIDO2 security key. These authentication methods can't easily be duplicated by an attacker. Microsoft Entra ID provides ways to natively authenticate using passwordless methods to simplify the sign-in experience for users and reduce the risk of attacks. The following video explains the problem with passwords and why passwordless authentication is so important.
We're living in amazing times. The old security paradigms no longer apply. We need to transform our approach to security as well.
Look, the only people in the world who love passwords are hackers because they're hard for humans to remember and they're easy for hackers to guess.
You really need to do more to protect your business.
The first thing everybody should do is go turn on multi-factor authentication. That will cut your risk of attack by 99.9%. We are moving from a world where usernames and passwords are the standard to a world where passwordless authentication is really the standard. So for Microsoft, the best way to see that is with Windows Hello. You just walk up to your PC and using your face or your thumbprint, you can log into your PC. If you don't have a PC like that, though, you can use the Microsoft Authenticator. You just use your phone and you use your thumbprint or your face on that. And then a whole bunch of new solutions are on the way based on a new set of open standards. Those are called the FIDO2 set of standards. Things like USB keys and badges and wearables.
In order to help everyone be more secure and productive in the world without boundaries, we collaborate across Microsoft, across our industry, and with security experts around the world.
Passwordless authentication is really taking off. Last month, 85 million people logged in using Windows Hello or the Microsoft Authenticator, and then they could get to all of our cloud services. That's really the trend for the future, and it's growing really fast.
It's essential for companies to protect both the privacy and the security of its end users. We are always asking how we can help you to keep them even safer.
Windows Hello for Business. Windows Hello for Business replaces passwords with strong two-factor authentication on devices. The two-factor authentication is a combination of a key or certificate tied to a device and something that the person knows. A PIN or something that the person is. Biometrics, PIN entry, and biometric gesture both trigger the use of a private key to cryptographically sign data that is sent to the identity provider. The identity provider verifies the user's identity and authenticates the user. Windows Hello for Business helps protect against credential theft because an attacker must have both the device and the biometric info or PIN, making it more difficult to gain access without the employee's knowledge. As a passwordless authentication method, Windows Hello for Business serves as a primary form of authentication. In addition, Windows Hello for Business can be used as a secondary form of authentication to verify an identity during multi-factor authentication. FIDO2. Fast Identity Online, FIDO, is an open standard for passwordless authentication. FIDO allows users and organizations to leverage the standard to sign in to their resources using an external security key or a platform key built into a device, eliminating the need for a username and password. FIDO2 is the latest standard that incorporates the Web Authentication, WebAuthn, standard and is supported by Microsoft Entra ID. FIDO2 security keys are an unphishable standards-based passwordless authentication method that can come in any form factor. These FIDO2 security keys are typically USB devices, but could also be Bluetooth or near-field communication-based devices, which are used for short-range wireless data transfer. With a hardware device that handles the authentication, the security of an account is increased and there's no password that could be exposed or guessed. With FIDO2 security keys, users can sign in to Microsoft Entra ID or Microsoft Entra Hybrid joined Windows 10 devices and get single sign-on to their cloud and on-premise resources. Users can also sign in to supported browsers. FIDO2 security keys are a great option for enterprises who are very security sensitive or have scenarios or employees who aren't willing or able to use their phone as a second factor. As a passwordless authentication method, FIDO2 serves as a primary form of authentication. In addition, FIDO2 can be used as a secondary form of authentication to verify an identity during multi-factor authentication. Microsoft Authenticator app. As a passwordless authentication method, the Microsoft Authenticator app can be used as a primary form of authentication to sign in to any Microsoft Entra account or as an additional verification option during self-service password reset or Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication events. To use Microsoft Authenticator, a user must download the phone app from the Microsoft Store and register their account. Microsoft Authenticator is available for Android and iOS. With passwordless sign-in, the Authenticator app turns any iOS or Android phone into a strong passwordless credential. To sign in to their Microsoft Launcher account, a user enters their username, matches a number displayed on the screen to the one on their phone, then uses a biometric or PIN to confirm. When a user chooses Authenticator as a secondary form of authentication to verify their identity, a notification is pushed to the phone or tablet. If the notification is legitimate, the user selects Approve. Otherwise, they select Deny. The Authenticator app can also be used as a software token to generate an OAuth verification code. After entering your username and password, you enter the code provided by the Authenticator app into the sign-in interface. The OAuth verification code provides a second form of authentication for self-service password reset or multi-factor authentication. Certificate-based authentication. Microsoft Entra Identity Certificate-based authentication enables customers to allow or require users to authenticate directly with X509 certificates against their Microsoft Entra identity for applications and browser sign-in. Certificate-based authentication is supported only as a primary form of passwordless authentication. X509 certificates, which are part of the public key infrastructure, PKI, are digitally signed documents that bind an identity, an individual, organization, website to its public key. For more information, see Describe Concepts of Cryptography. Primary and secondary authentication. Some authentication methods can be used as the primary factor when you sign into an application or device. Other authentication methods are only available as a secondary factor when you use Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication or self-service password reset. While that information is called out in the text that describes each authentication method, the following table summarizes when an authentication method can be used during a sign-in event. So here are the Microsoft authentication methods. Method, Windows Hello for Business. Primary authentication, yes. Secondary authentication, multi-factor authentication. Users must be enabled for FIDO2. Microsoft Authenticator, primary authentication, yes. Secondary authentication is multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset. Method is FIDO2 security key. Primary authentication, yes. Secondary authentication is MFA, or multi-factor authentication. Certificate-based authentication, yes. Secondary authentication, no. OAuth hardware tokens preview is, I guess it's not a rolled out feature yet. It's just in preview. The primary authentication is no. And the secondary authentication is multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset. OAuth software tokens is no. And the secondary authentication is multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset. Short message. What does SMS even stand for? SMS acronym. Short message service. The primary authentication is no. The primary authentication is yes. And the secondary authentication is multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset. And then voice call, the primary authentication is no. And the secondary authentication is multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset. For a password, the primary authentication is yes, and the secondary authentication is no. So for the next unit, it's going to be describing multi-factor authentication. Describe multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is a process in which users are prompted during the sign-in process for an additional form of identification, such as a code on their cell phone or a fingerprint scan. Multi-factor authentication dramatically improves the security of an identity while still being simple for users. The extra authentication factor must be something that's difficult for an attacker to obtain or duplicate. Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication works by requiring something you know, typically a password or PIN, and something you have, such as a trusted device that's not easily duplicated, like a phone or hardware key, or something you are, biometrics like a fingerprint or face scan. Multi-factor authentication verification prompts are configured to be part of the start over there. I'm talking too fast. Multi-factor authentication verification prompts are configured to be part of the Microsoft Entra sign-in event. Microsoft Entra ID automatically requests and processes multi-factor authentication without you making any changes to your application or services. When a user signs in, they receive a multi-factor authentication prompt. You can choose from one of the additional verification forms that they've registered. An administrator can require certain verification methods, or the user can access their My Account to edit or add verification methods. The following additional forms of verification described in the previous unit can be used with Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication, like the Microsoft Authenticator app, Windows Hello for Business, the FIDO2 security key, OAuth hardware token, OAuth software token, short message service, voice call. And here's an example of MFA prompt. Security defaults and multi-factor authentication. Security defaults are a set of basic identity security mechanisms recommended by Microsoft. When enabled, these recommendations are automatically enforced in your organization. The goal is to ensure that all organizations have a basic level of security enabled at no extra cost. These defaults enable some of the most common security features and controls, including enforcing Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication registration for all users, forcing administrators to use multi-factor authentication, requiring all users to complete multi-factor authentication when needed. Security defaults are a great option for organizations that want to increase their security posture but don't know where to start for organizations using the free tier of Microsoft Entra ID licensing. Security defaults may not be appropriate for organizations with Microsoft Entra ID P1 or P2 licenses or more complex security requirements. And describe self-service password reset. Describe self-service password reset. Self-service password reset is a feature of Microsoft Entra ID that allows users to change or reset their password without administrator or help desk involvement. Self-service password reset has several key benefits for organizations and users. Self-service password reset reduces IT support costs by enabling users to reset passwords on their own. Self-service password reset allows users to get back to work faster and be more productive. Administrators can change settings to accommodate new security requirements and roll these changes out to users without disrupting their sign-in. Self-service password reset includes robust audit logs that are available from an API, enabling data to be imported to a security incident and event monitoring SIEM system of choice. If a user's account is locked or they forget or want to change their password, they can follow a prompt to reset it and get back to work. This ability reduces help desk calls and loss of productivity when a user can't sign in to their device or an application. To use self-service password reset, users must be assigned a Microsoft Entra ID license. Refer to the Learn More section of the Summary and Resources unit for a link to the licensing requirements for Microsoft Entra self-service password reset. Enabled for self-service password reset by an administrator. Registered with the authentication methods they want to use. 2 or more authentication methods are recommended in case one is unavailable. The following authentication methods are available for self-service password reset: mobile app notification, mobile app code, email, mobile phone, office phone, security questions. When users register for self-service password reset, they're prompted to choose the authentication methods to use. If they choose to use security questions, they pick from a set of questions to prompt for, and then provide their own answers. Security questions can only be used during the self-service password reset process to confirm who you are. As a secondary form of authentication, security questions aren't used as an authentication method during a sign-in event. Administrator accounts can't use security questions as verification method with self-service password reset. And then note, by default, administrator accounts are enabled for self-service password reset and are required to use 2 authentication methods to reset their password, such as an email address, authenticator app, or a phone number. Administrators don't have the ability to use security questions. When a user resets their password using self-service password reset, it can also be written back to an on-premises Active Directory. Password write back allows users to use their updated credentials with on-premises devices and applications without a delay. To keep users informed about account activity, admins can configure email notifications to be sent when a self-service password reset event happens. These notifications can cover both regular user accounts and admin accounts. For admin accounts, this notification provides an extra layer of awareness when a privileged administrator account password is reset using self-service password reset. All global admins will be notified when self-service password reset is used on an admin account. The next unit is to describe password protection and management capabilities. Describe password protection and management capabilities. Password protection is a feature of Microsoft Entra ID that reduces the risk of users setting weak passwords. Microsoft Entra Password Protection detects and blocks known weak passwords and their variants, and can also block other weak terms that are specific to your organization. With Microsoft Entra Password Protection, default global banned password lists are automatically applied to all users in a Microsoft Entra tenant. To support your own business and security needs, you can define entries in a custom banned password list. When users change or reset their passwords, the lists are checked to enforce the use of strong passwords. You should use extra features like multi-factor authentication, not just rely on strong passwords enforced by Microsoft Entra Password Protection. Global banned password list. A global banned password list with known weak passwords is automatically updated and enforced by Microsoft. This list is maintained by Microsoft Entra ID Protection Team, who analyzes security telemetry data to find weak or compromised passwords. Examples of passwords that might be blocked are password or password1 and all variations. Variations are created using an algorithm that transposes text case and letters to numbers such as 1 to an I. Variations on password1 might include password1, and others. These passwords are then checked and added to global banned password list. The global banned password list is automatically applied to all users in a Microsoft Entra tenant and can't be disabled. If a Microsoft Entra user tries to set their password to one of these weak passwords, they receive a notification to choose a more secure one. The global banned password list is sourced from real-world actual password spray attacks. This approach improves the overall security and effectiveness, and the password validation algorithm also uses smart fuzzy matching techniques used to find strings that approximately match a pattern. Microsoft Entra Password Protection efficiently detects and blocks millions of the most common weak passwords from being used in your enterprise. Custom banned password lists. Admins can also create custom banned password lists to support specific business security needs. The custom banned password list prohibits passwords such as the organization name or location. Passwords added to the custom banned password list should be focused on organizational specific terms such as brand names, product names, locations such as company headquarters, company specific internal terms, abbreviations that have specific company meaning. The custom banned password list is combined with the global banned password list to block variations of all the passwords. Banned password lists are a feature of Microsoft Entra ID P1 or P2 licensing. Here we're in the password protection blade. We show the authentication methods. The custom smart lockout threshold is 10. The lockout duration, and so if you have the incorrect password 10 times, it locks you out. The lockout duration is 60 seconds. There is a custom banned password list, and it's enforced. The custom banned passwords are Contoso, Fabricam, and Tailwind. And then password protection for Windows Server Active Directory is enabled. Protecting against password spray. Microsoft Entra Password Protection helps you defend against password spray attacks. Most password spray attacks submit only a few of the known weakest passwords against each of the accounts in an enterprise. This technique allows the attacker to quickly search for an easily compromised account and avoid potential detection thresholds. Microsoft Entra Password Protection efficiently blocks all known weak passwords likely to be used in password spray attacks. This protection is based on real-world security telemetry data from Microsoft Entra ID, which is used to build the global banned password list. Hybrid security. For hybrid security, admins can integrate Microsoft Entra Password Protection within an on-premise Active Directory environment. A component installed in the on-premises environment receives the global banned password list and custom password protection policies from Microsoft Entra ID. Domain controllers then use them to process password change events. This hybrid approach makes sure that whenever a user changes their password, Microsoft Entra Password Protection is applied. Although password protection improves the strength of passwords, you should still use best practice features like multi-factor authentication. Passwords alone, even strong ones, are not as secure as multiple layers of security. And then we have the module assessment. So let's see if I remembered this. Of the authentication methods listed below, which one represents the most secure authentication method? Windows Hello, passwords, or short message service? It's going to be Windows Hello. Which of the following additional forms of verification can be used with Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication? Microsoft Authenticator app, SMS, voice call, FIDO2, and Windows Hello for Business. Security questions, SMS, voice call, FIDO2, and Windows Hello for Business. Password spray, SMS, voice call, FIDO2, and Windows Hello for Business. It's going to be this one. A company's IT organization has been asked to find ways to reduce IT costs without compromising security. Which features should they consider implementing? Self-service password reset, biometric sign-in on all devices, or FIDO2. It would be self-service password reset. And we got all those correct. So let's read the summary. In this module, you've seen why passwords are a problematic form of authentication. You've learned about the different types of authentication that can be used with Microsoft Entra ID, including passwordless authentication with Windows Hello for Business and the Microsoft Authenticator app. You've learned about multi-factor authentication. You've learned about the benefits of allowing users to reset their own passwords with self-service password reset and how Microsoft Entra password protection mitigates against the inherent risks associated with passwords. Now that you've completed this module, you can describe the authentication methods of Microsoft Entra ID, describe the multi-factor authentication in Microsoft Entra ID, describe the password protection and management capabilities of Microsoft Entra ID. And let's complete the module. And let's go back to the introduction to Microsoft Entra. Click continue. The security perimeter has shifted away from organizational boundaries to user, device, and service identities. Also, applications and data are moving to the cloud. These shifts require more secure and granular access control solutions. This module introduces you to conditional access, Microsoft's zero trust policy engine that takes signals from various sources into account when enforcing policy decisions. You learn about global secure access, Microsoft's security service edge solution, which combines the identity controls you have with conditional access together with network controls to provide advanced protections for your internet-based resources and resources running in your private cloud or on-premises infrastructure. You also learn about Microsoft Entra roles and role-based access control, which are key to implementing least privilege access, a guiding principle of a zero-trust strategy security. In this module, you learn how to describe conditional access in Microsoft Entra, describe global secure access in Microsoft Entra, describe Microsoft Entra roles and role-based access control. I'm going to describe conditional access. Conditional access is a feature of Microsoft Entra ID that provides an extra layer of security before allowing authenticated users to access data or any other assets. Conditional access is implemented through policies that are created and managed in Microsoft Entra ID. A conditional access policy analyzes signals including user, location, device, application, and risk to automate decisions for authorizing access to resources, apps, and data. So let's take a look here. We have identities, workload, groups and roles, risk, trusted and compliant devices, apps and data, location, and compliant network. And then we have the continuous access evaluation with machine learning, real-time evaluation engine. So the continuous access evaluation is machine learning, unified policies, effective policy, real-time evaluation engine. Or unified policies, machine learning, and real-time evaluation engine. So it starts with unified policies and either uses machine learning to be evaluated or it uses an effective policy to be evaluated. And then at the security service edge, it can either allow access to your infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or your data center, require, block, or restrict, to any of these, including Microsoft 365, internet, and on-premises infrastructure. Conditional access policies at their simplest are if-then statements. For example, a conditional access policy might state that if a user belongs to a certain group, then they're required to provide multi-factor authentication to sign into an application. Conditional access policies are enforced after first authentication is completed. Conditional access isn't intended to be an organization's first line of defense for scenarios like denial of service attacks, but it can use signals from these events to determine access. Conditional access policy components. A conditional access policy in Microsoft Entra ID consists of two components, assignments, and access controls. So control access based on conditional access policy to bring signals together to make decisions and enforce organizational policies. You have your assignments, the users, target resources, network conditions, and then your access controls that you grant in the sessions. Assignments. When creating a conditional access policy, admins can determine which signals to use through assignments. The assignments portion of policy controls the who, what, where, and when of the conditional access policy. All assignments are logically ANDed. If you have more than one assignment configured, all assignments must be satisfied to trigger a policy. Some of the assignments include users assign who the policy will include or exclude. This assignment can include all users in the directory, specific users and groups, directory roles, external guests, and workload identities. Target resources include applications or services, user actions, global secure access, which is in preview, or authentication contexts. Cloud apps. Administrators can choose from the list of applications or services that include built-in Microsoft applications, including Microsoft Cloud Applications, Office 365, the Windows Azure Service Management API, Microsoft Admin Portals, and any Microsoft Entra registered applications. User actions. Administrators can choose to define policy not based on a cloud application, but on a user action like register security information or register join devices, allowing conditional access to enforce controls around those actions. Global secure access, which is in preview. Administrators can use conditional access policies to secure the traffic that passes through the global secure access service. This is done by defining traffic profiles in global secure access. Conditional access policies can then be assigned to the global secure access traffic profile. Authentication context. Authentication context can be used to further secure data and actions and applications. For example, users that have access to specific content in a SharePoint site may be required to access that content via a managed device or agree to specific terms of use. Network allows you to control user access based on the user's network or physical location. You can include any network or locations marked as trusted networks or trusted IP address ranges or name locations. You can also identify compliant networks that are made up of users and devices that comply with your organization's security policies. Conditions define where and when the policy will apply. Multiple conditions can be combined to create fine-grained and specific conditional access policies. Some of the conditions include sign-in risk and user risk. Integration with Microsoft Entra ID protection allows conditional access policies to identify suspicious actions related to user accounts in the directory and trigger a policy. Sign-in risk is the probability that a given sign-in or authentication request isn't authorized by the identity owner. User risk is the probability that a given identity or account is compromised. Insider risk. Administrators with access to Microsoft Purview adaptive protection can incorporate risk signals from Microsoft Purview into conditional access policy decisions. Insider risk takes into account your data governance, data security, and risk and compliance configurations from Microsoft Purview. Devices platform. Device platform, which is characterized by the operating system that runs on a device, can be used when enforcing conditional access policies. Client apps. Client apps, the software the user is employing to access the cloud app, including browsers, mobile apps, desktop clients, can also be used in access policy decision. Filters for devices. Organizations can enforce policies based on device properties by using the filters for devices option. As an example, this option may be used to target policies to specific devices like privileged access workstations. In essence, the assignments portion controls the who, what, and where of the conditional access policy. Access controls. When the conditional access policy has been applied, an informed decision is reached on whether to block access, grant access with extra verification, or apply session control to enable limited experience. The decision is referred to as the access controls portion of the conditional access policy and defines how a policy is enforced. Common decisions are block access, Grant access. Administrators can grant access without any additional control, or they can choose to enforce one or more controls when granting access. Examples of controls used to grant access include requiring users to perform multi-factor authentication, requiring specific authentication methods to access a resource, requiring devices to meet specific compliance policy requirements, require a password change, or more. For a complete list, refer to grant controls in conditional access policy. Session. Within a conditional access policy, an administrator can make use of session controls to enable limited experiences within specific cloud applications. As an example, conditional access app control uses signals from Microsoft Defender for cloud apps to block the download, cut, copy, and print capabilities for sensitive documents, or to require labeling of sensitive files. Other session controls include sign-in frequency and application enforced restrictions that for selected applications use the device information to provide users with a limited or full experience depending on the device state. For a complete list, refer session controls and conditional access policy. In summary, the assignments portion controls the who, what, and where of the conditional access policy, while the access controls portion controls how a policy is enforced. The next unit is describe global secure access in Microsoft Entra.
trying to promote sunrise and it doesn't stop there. She's got portions and portions and Love is greatest, love forever, you and me. Everyone there forever. Best friend, let's go for it, you and me.
Is this thing still on? Yep. Well, it's a little bit more than a break, but I'm back. We're going to describe global secure access in Microsoft Entra. Microsoft Entra now provides a set of products under the heading of Microsoft Global Secure Access. Global Secure Access is the unifying term used for both Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Microsoft Entra Private Access. Microsoft Entra Internet Access secures access to software as a service applications, including Microsoft services and public internet apps, while protecting users, devices, and data against internet threats. Microsoft Entra Private Access provides your users, whether in an office or working remotely, secure access to your private corporate resources. Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Microsoft Entra Private Access come together as a solution that converges zero trust network, identity, and endpoint access controls so that you can secure access to any app or resource from any location, device, or identity. This type of solution represents a new network security category called Security Service Edge. Security Service Edge helps address security challenges such as the need to reducing the risk of lateral movement through a compromised VPN tunnel, the need to put a perimeter around internet-based assets, the need to improve service in remote office locations such branch offices. Microsoft Security Service Edge solution, Global Secure Access, provides advanced protections for your internet-based resources and running in your private cloud. Or on-premises infrastructure to help address security challenges. The solution employs a global secure access client that gives organizations control over network traffic at the end-user computing device. Organizations gain the ability to route specific traffic profiles through Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Microsoft Entra Private Access. Routing traffic in this method allows for more controls enabled by deep integration with conditional access policies and risks assessed in real time across identity, device, location, and applications to protect any app or resource. Here we have Microsoft 365, Internet and SaaS applications, headquarter or like your main MDF and data center, infrastructure as a service and platform as a service in the cloud, Microsoft Entra Internet Access, Microsoft Entra Private Access, Global Secure Access, and you can access your identities, endpoints, and remote networks. And then it's zero trust because it verifies explicitly, uses leaf privilege, and assumes breach. Microsoft Private Access. VPN solutions are often used as a primary method to control corporate network access. Once private network connectivity is established, the front door to your network is unlocked, and on top of that, it's common for users and devices to be over-permissioned. This significantly increases your organization's attack surface. Microsoft Entra Private Access can be deployed to block lateral attack movement, reduce excessive access, and replace legacy VPNs. The service provides your users, whether in an office or working remotely, secured access to your private corporate resources. Conceptually, the way private access works is that for a given set of private resources you want to secure, you set up a new enterprise application that serves as a container for those private resources. The new application has a network connector that serves as a broker between the private access service and the resource a user wants to access. Now, clearly, enterprises have different requirements for accessing different private resources, so Microsoft Entra Private Access provides two ways in which you can set up the private resources you want to have accessed through the service. Quick access. As previously described, private access works by creating a new enterprise application that serves as a container for the private resources you want to secure. With quick access, you determine which private resources to add to the container or enterprise application, which we'll call the quick access application. The private resources you add to the quick access application are defined by the application segment. You can add many application segments to the quick access application. You can then link conditional access policies to the quick access application. So you have your global secure access client, and then your Microsoft Entra Private Access. Here's your app proxy connector with your on-premise network and like a website, remote desktop, and your SMB protocol. You can use the Quick Access app. Global Secure Access app. Global Secure Access app, also referred to as per app access, provides a more granular approach. With Global Secure Access app, you can create multiple containers or enterprise application. Each of these new enterprise apps, you define the properties of the private resource, and you assign users and groups and assign specific conditional access policies. For example, you may have a group of private resources you need to secure, but for which you want to set different access policies based on how they're accessing the resource or for a specific time frame. Microsoft Entra Internet Access. A secure web gateway is a cybersecurity solution that protects users from web-based threats by filtering internet traffic and enforcing security policies. Microsoft Entra Internet Access provides an identity-centric secure web gateway solution for software as a service applications, including Microsoft services and other internet traffic. It provides users, devices, and data from the internet's wide threat landscape with best-in-class security controls and visibility through traffic logs. Some of the key features include protection against user identity or token theft by using conditional access policies to perform a compliant network check for access to resources. Compliant network enforcement happens at authentication plane and at the data plane. Authentication plane enforcement is performed by Microsoft Entra ID at the time of user authentication. Data plane enforcement works with services that support continuous access evaluation. Continuous access evaluation is a security feature where apps and Microsoft Entra constantly communicate to ensure user access is up to date and secure. If something changes, like a user's location or a security concern arises, the system can quickly adjust or block access in near real time, ensuring policies are always enforced. Tenant restrictions to prevent data exfiltration to other tenants or personal accounts, including anonymous access. Internet access traffic forwarding profile policies to control which internet sites can be accessed to ensure remote workers connect to the internet in a controlled and secure way. Web content filtering to regulate access to websites based on their content categories and domain names, and many more. Global Secure Access Dashboard. Global Secure Access includes a dashboard that provides you with visualizations of the network traffic acquired by the Entra private and Microsoft Entra Internet Access services. The dashboard compiles the data from your network configurations, including devices, users, and tenants, into several widgets. Those widgets, in turn, provide you with information you can use to monitor and improve your network configurations. Some of the available widgets include Global Secure Access Snapshot, alerts and notifications, usage and profiling, cross-tenant access, web category filtering, and device status. Global Secure Access Snapshot. The Global Secure Access Snapshot widget provides a summary of how many users and devices are using the service and how many applications were secured through the service. The widget defaults to showing all types of traffic, but you can change the filter to show internet access, private access, or Microsoft traffic. This is the Global Secure Access Snapshot. The Global Secure Access Snapshot provides quick access to the user's devices and destinations with network traffic captured by Microsoft Entra Private Access and Microsoft Entra Internet Access. Out of 910 devices, 5 have the Global Secure Access client installed. The usage profiling widget displays usage patterns for Internet Access, Private Access, or Microsoft 365 over a selected period of time and by category. The Alerts and Notifications widget shows what is happening in the network and helps identify suspicious activities or trends identified by the network data. This widget provides the following alerts. Unhealthy remote network. An unhealthy remote network has one or more device links disconnected. Increased external tenants activity. The number of users accessing external tenants has increased. Token and device inconsistency. The original token is used on a different device. Web content blocked. Access to the website has been blocked. Cross-tenant access. Global Secure Access provides visibility into the number of users and devices that are accessing other tenants. This widget displays the following information. Sign-ins, the number of sign-ins through Microsoft Entra ID to Microsoft services in the last 24 hours. This widget provides you with information about the activity in your tenant. Total distinct tenants, the number of distinct tenant IDs seen in the last 24 hours. Unseen tenants, the number of distinct tenant IDs that were seen in the last 24 hours but not in the previous 7 days. Users, the number of distinct user sign-ins to other tenants in the last 24 hours. Devices, the number of distinct devices that signed in to other tenants in the last 24 hours. Web category filtering. The web category filtering widget displays the top categories of web content that were blocked or allowed by the service. These categories can be used to determine what sites or categories of sites you might want to block. Device status. The device status widget displays the active and inactive devices that you have deployed. Describe Microsoft Entra roles and role-based access control. Microsoft Entra roles control permissions to manage Microsoft Entra resources. For example, allowing user accounts to be created or billing information to be viewed. Microsoft Entra ID supports built-in and custom roles. Managing access using roles is known as role-based access control. Microsoft Entra built-in and custom roles are a form of role-based access control, in that Microsoft Entra roles control access to Microsoft Entra resources. This is referred to as Microsoft Entra role-based access control. Built-in roles. Microsoft Entra ID includes many built-in roles, which are roles with a fixed set of permissions. A few of the most common built-in roles are Global Administrator. Users with this role have access to all administrative features in Microsoft Entra. The person who signs up for the Microsoft Entra tenant automatically becomes a Global Administrator. User Administrator. Users with this role can create and manage all aspects of users and groups. This role also includes the ability to manage support tickets and monitor service health. Billing Administrator. Users with this role make purchases, manage subscriptions and support tickets, and monitor service health. All built-in roles are pre-configured bundles of permissions designed for specific tasks. The fixed set of permissions included in the built-in roles can be modified. Custom roles. Although there are many built-in admin roles in Microsoft Entra, custom roles give flexibility when granting access. A custom role definition is a collection of permissions that you choose from a preset list. The list of permissions to choose from are the same permissions used by the built-in roles. The difference is that you get to choose which permissions you want to include in a custom role. Granting permissions using custom Microsoft Entra roles is a two-step process. The first step involves creating a custom role definition, consisting of a collection of permissions that you add from a preset list. Once you've created your custom role definition, the second step is to assign that role to users or groups by creating a role assignment. A role assignment grants the user the permission in a role definition at a specified scope. The scope defines the set of Microsoft Entra resources the role member has access to. A custom role can be assigned at organization-wide scope, meaning the role member has the role permissions over all resources. A custom role can also be assigned at an object scope. An example of an object scope would be a single application. The same role can be assigned to one user over all applications in the organization, and then to another user with the scope of only the Contoso Expense Reports app. Custom roles requires a Microsoft Entra ID P1 or P2 license. Only grant the access users need. It's best practice and more secure to grant users the least privilege to get their work done. It means that if someone mostly manages users, you should assign the user administrator role and not global administrator. By assigning least privileges, you limit the damage that can be done with a compromised account. Categories of Microsoft Entra roles. Microsoft Entra ID is an available service if you subscribe to any Microsoft Online business offer, such as Microsoft 365 and Azure. Available Microsoft 365 services include Microsoft Entra ID, Exchange, SharePoint, Microsoft Defender, Teams, Intune, and many more. Over time, some Microsoft 365 services, such as Exchange and Intune, have developed their own role-based access control systems. Just like the Microsoft Entra service has Microsoft Entra roles to control access to Microsoft Entra resources, other services such as Teams and SharePoint don't have separate role-based access control systems. They use Microsoft Entra roles for their administrative access. To make it convenient to manage identity across Microsoft 365 services, Microsoft Entra ID has added some service-specific built-in roles, each of which grants administrative access to all Microsoft 365 service. This means that Microsoft Entra built-in roles differ in where they can be used. There are 3 broad categories: Microsoft Entra specific roles. These roles grant permissions to manage resources within the Microsoft Entra only. For example, user administrator, application administrator, group administrator, all grant permissions to manage resources that live in Microsoft Entra ID. Service-specific roles. For major Microsoft 365 services, Microsoft Entra ID includes built-in service-specific roles that grant permissions to manage features within the service. For example, Microsoft Entra ID includes built-in roles for Exchange Administrator, Intune Administrator, SharePoint Administrator, and Teams Administrator roles that can manage features with the respective services. Cross-service roles. There are some roles within Microsoft Entra ID that span services. For example, Microsoft Entra ID has security-related roles like Security Administrator that grant access across multiple security services within Microsoft 365. Similarly, the Compliance Administrator role grants access to manage compliance-related settings in Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, Exchange, and so on. So the Security Center, Security Admin, Microsoft Defender for Cloud is Security Admin, then Microsoft Entra, App Admin, User Admin, Groups Admin, Auth Admin, etc. Teams is Teams Admin, Teams Device Admin, Teams Communications Admin, etc. Intune Admin is Intune, Exchange Admin for Exchange. So this is a cross-service where they have access to Microsoft Entra, Defender, and Security Center. And Exchange Admin's cross-service for Microsoft Entra and Exchange. That would be Microsoft Entra specific. This would be service specific. Actually, Exchange would just be for Exchange. Intune would be for Intune. This is a cross service because you can see in the Venn diagram it goes across multiple blades. Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Security Center, and Microsoft Entra. Difference between Microsoft Entra role-based access control and Azure role-based access control. As described above, Microsoft Entra built-in and custom roles are a form of role-based access control in that they control access to Microsoft Entra resources. This is referred to as Microsoft Entra role-based access control. In the same way that Microsoft Entra roles can control access to Microsoft Entra resources, so too can Azure roles control access to Azure resources. This is referred to as Azure role-based access control. Although the concept of role-based access control applies to both Microsoft Entra role-based access control and Azure role-based access control, what they control are different. Microsoft Entra role-based access control. Microsoft Entra roles control access to Microsoft Entra resources, such as users, groups, and applications. Azure role-based access control. Azure roles control access to Azure resources, such as virtual machines or storage using Azure Resource Management. There are different data stores where role definitions and role assignments are stored. Similarly, there are different policy decision points where access checks happen. Do the module assessment. This assessment evaluates your understanding of the module. What is the key reason for using custom roles in Microsoft Entra? To tailor permission-specific organizational needs. How does Microsoft Entra's private access enhance security for corporate resources compared to traditional VPN solutions? By reducing excessive access and blocking lateral attack movement. Which, I think that's it. I'm not exactly sure on that one. Which Microsoft Entra role would you assign to a user who needs to manage subscriptions, make purchases, and monitor service health without accessing user account management features? Billing Administrator. Which scenario would you use a conditional access policy simulation tool to address? To test the impact of a new policy on user access without applying it. An organization wants to prevent data exfiltration into personal accounts when using internet-based applications. Which feature of Microsoft Entra Global Secure Access can help achieve this? It could be tenant restrictions. Your organization wants to enforce conditional access policies that require multi-factor authentication for users accessing corporate resources from outside the trusted network. Which policy component should you configure to achieve this? It could be user risk. How do Microsoft Entra roles help in implementing a zero trust strategy? A user is unable to access a cloud application despite having valid credentials. After checking the conditional access policies, what could be a potential reason for access denial? It's definitely not this one. It's either of these two. I'm going to go with the application is not listed in the policy's target resources. Your organization is experiencing an increase in external tenant activity. Which feature of global secure access can help you monitor and manage this situation? I believe it's the cross-tenant access widget. Oh, I did not do good on this one. Let's see which ones I got wrong. What is a key reason for using custom roles in Microsoft Entra? To tailor permissions to specific organizational needs. How does Microsoft Entra Private Access enhance security for corporate resources compared to traditional VPN solutions? By reducing excessive access and blocking lateral movement. Which Microsoft Entra role would you assign to a user who needs to manage subscriptions, make purchases, and monitor service health without accessing user management feature, billing administrator? Which scenario would you use a conditional access policy simulation tool to address? To test the impact of a new policy on user access without applying it. An organization wants to prevent data exfiltration to personal accounts when using internet-based applications. Which feature of Microsoft Entra Global Secure Access can help achieve this? Is tenant restrictions. Your organization wants to enforce conditional access policies that require multi-factor authentication for users accessing corporate resources from outside the trusted network. Which policy component should you configure to achieve this? Oh, that one should have been network location, I think. How do Microsoft Entra roles help in implementing zero trust strategy? By enabling role-based access control to ensure least privilege access. A user is unable to access a cloud application despite having valid credentials. After checking the conditional access policies, what could be a potential reason for access denial? And it must be the user does not meet, the user's device does not meet compliance requirements, because I second guessed myself on that one. Your organization is experiencing an increase in external tenant activity. Which feature of Global Secure Access can help you monitor and manage this situation? Cross-tenant access widget. Which of the following components is a part of Microsoft Entra's Global Secure Access that helps in securing SaaS applications and public internet apps? In a scenario where a custom role is necessary for managing only user account creation, which type of role should be created by Microsoft Entra? Your company needs to enforce a conditional access policy that requires users to authenticate with a specific method when accessing sensitive applications. Which access control should be configured? How does Microsoft Entra ensure least privilege access when assigning roles? What role does the Global Secure Access dashboard play in managing Microsoft Entra services? I did better that time, but there were different questions. Which of the following components is part of Microsoft Entra's Global Secure Access that helps in securing SaaS applications and public internet apps? Microsoft Entra Internet Access. In a scenario where a custom role is necessary for managing only user account creation, Which type of role should be created in Microsoft Entra? Custom role specific permissions. Your company needs to enforce a conditional access policy that requires users to authenticate with a specific method when accessing sensitive applications. Which access controls should be configured? Require app protection policy. Your company is implementing a conditional access policy to limit access to sensitive data to manage devices only. What access control should be configured to enforce this? Require device to be marked as compliant. How does Microsoft Entra ensure least privilege access when assigning roles? By allowing assignment of roles with only necessary permissions. Which capability of Microsoft Entra Internet Access is focused on maintaining continuous security evaluations for user access? Continuous access evaluation. What role does the Global Secure Access dashboard play in managing Microsoft Entra services? It provides visualizations of network traffic and security alerts. How can Microsoft Entra roles be assigned to ensure that the least privilege principle is maintained? Assign roles based on specific job functions and only require permissions. Which assignment condition in a conditional access policy allows administrators to enforce policy based on a user's risk level? User risk condition. So what was, I missed one. Your company needs to enforce a conditional access policy that requires users to authenticate with a specific method when accessing sensitive applications. Which access control should be configured? Maybe require a specific authentication method. This one's user risk condition. This one is custom role with specific permissions. How does Microsoft Entra private access enhance security for corporate resources compared to traditional VPN solutions for reducing lateral movement? Your organization wants to enforce conditional access policies that require multi-factor authentication for users accessing corporate resources from outside the trusted network. Which policy component should you configure to achieve this? Network location. Which role should be used for managing all aspects of users and groups without granting access to billing information in Microsoft Entra? User administrator. There. I got 100% that time. In this module, you learned about conditional access and how it brings signals together to make decisions and enforce organizational policies. You learned about global secure access, Microsoft's security service edge solution that combines the identity controls you have with conditional access together with network controls to provide advanced protections for your internet-based resources and your private corporate resources. You also learned about built-in and custom roles in Microsoft Entra ID that provide role-based access control. Now that you've completed this module, you're able to describe conditional access in Microsoft Entra ID, describe global secure access in Microsoft Entra, describe Microsoft Entra roles and role-based access control. Let's complete the module. Identity governance is about balancing identity security with user productivity in a way that can be justified and audited. Identity protection is about protecting an organization's identities against risk and potential vulnerabilities. Microsoft Entra ID provides many identity protection and governance capabilities that work together to mitigate risk by protecting, monitoring, and auditing access to critical assets while ensuring employee and business partner productivity. In this module, you'll learn how to describe the capabilities of Microsoft Entra ID governance, Describe privileged identity management. Describe the capabilities of Microsoft Entra ID protection. I think I'm going to pick up on this at a different time. So, see you in 2026.